Hello everyone, this is Charlotte. It's a podcast called Chatting in Cars, where I talk about random topics, driving to work. Right, so it's Monday. This is the last week of my third term for the year, because I'm a teacher. So I'm pretty buzzing and caffeinated. There's a disclaimer at the start of this podcast, because I do swear profusely and I enjoy it thoroughly. I also talk about sensitive topics, which I'm not backing down on, and I do get ranty about it. So if you don't want to hear me bitching about assholes, then you can probably just turn it off now. Some people can't handle it, that's okay. I'm not you. Now, the topic for today is external validation. This is where we're seeking approval from others, I think, or, like people in our environment, things in our environment. I don't know, things that make you feel like you're valuable, that aren't intrinsic and on the inside, There is a danger to doing that because you're subject to whatever the person, I'm assuming it's a person because, internal validation is you saying it's okay rather than someone else saying it's okay. You're subject to whatever they value. That can be horrible because, if they're an asshole and they expect you to be an asshole to fit in, to get their acceptance, then, it completely cripples you. Morally, I would assume. But, it's not a good thing. You don't want external validation, you want internal validation. The main thing being that once these assholes disappear, and they will generally disappear because they never really stick around, any sense of value that you've put into yourself will be just negated. That's the problems. Growing up in the household that I did, I was raised to be a people pleaser, so I didn't really have any self-value. Sorry, that was flipping my eyes though. That's the problem. It was horrible because when it came to it, my parents weren't exactly the most nurturing of creatures. And then I went into a marriage with a guy who I couldn't ever make happy because nothing I did ever made him happy, to be honest. Unless it was, like catering to his ego and sucking his cock, basically. And even then he didn't like that, so fuck that guy. That was a weird trait of my ex-husband, didn't like head. Anyway, weird. Who doesn't like head? Anyway, no, that's a whole different podcast. So, he was a very strange boy. Very strange boy. I think he was gay. I swear he's gay. And I don't mean that in a kind of like, he doesn't like me sexually, so of course there he's gay. I mean, it's like, so many traits he had. I'm sitting there going, are you sure you're not a closet? Anyway, wouldn't matter if he was at this point. So, it was more the him being truthful about it thing that would have mattered. So, anyway, I never got his approval, even down to like the finest detail of how, he liked his eggs. It's like I never got that for shit, right? Then I moved on to an ex-boyfriend who I could never make happy because I wasn't letting him do exactly what he wanted to do, which was, sleep around and shit. Which I've got down to a T now. I've figured it out because he was so conniving about the way he was about it. Like he'd, emotionally, psychologically manipulate you. And then, say shit like, you're not liberal enough because, I won't sleep around. I'm sitting there going, well, I can see that you're trying to shit on my self-esteem to make me compliant, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to leave. So it's dumb shit like that. Again, no amount of, people pleasing to try and keep him happy worked. He was still an asshole, except he was trying to trauma bond me, and now I actually recognize, thanks to my ex-husband, that they were trying to trauma bond me. So that was sad that I had to go that way, but we get over it. It's nice to recognize it early. I don't have that thing where it's like external validation where you're, performing in front of people to try and get some kind of approval or applause. I'm generally an introvert, so I stay away from people. I don't like people. So, I'm also a Sigma, so I'm going to keep going doing whatever I need to do, regardless of whether anyone likes what I do or not. So I don't have that need for, like getting people's approval. I won't fake shit to join in. You got those fake people who sit there in groups and they'll pretend to be nice, and you can tell from the tone of their voice or their behaviors and watch their behaviors that they're just faking it, and it makes you sick. It gives you the shits because it feels like they're lying to your face. And maybe some people are doing it just to get along, just because it's this deemed approved thing to do. But at the same time, it's fake. If you don't like someone, you shouldn't have to fake it. If you like someone, you shouldn't have to fake that you don't like them, just to join in with a group or something like that. I know there was a few circumstances recently where, like people like someone and then the rest of the group don't like them, so they have to be act like an asshole or, exclude them or stuff like that. I've seen a lot of that recently, not just like in previous social groups, but also, around kids. It's a very immature way to do things, this belonging to a group so I have to exclude things. It's just Durkheim's othering as well. If you've actually listened to that podcast, which I think was right at the very start of this series, where it's excluding people because they don't share, the common traits of the group, the perceived valued common traits. But it's just, it's stupid. If you're looking at an individualistic society, which is what we are in a westernized position, obviously, the sort of Chinese, Russian collectivist cultures isn't really here. We value individuals. Then the value of having differences in a group should be higher. This tall poppy syndrome we keep facing in Australia, where anyone of value or who stands out or achieves more, that is actually cut down because of it, is ridiculous. I don't know why it exists. It seems to be contradictory. It's very strange. And we keep saying that we belong to a meritocracy where putting in effort is valued. But if you find any kind of person doing initiative and using their initiative in the workplace is often not rewarded because, I didn't ask you to do that, or you don't get paid more, or you don't get more recognition. It's just sort of, the other day I was working in a science room, and a very simple example of this. I was working in a science room with one of my teachers I was supporting because she broke her leg. I don't like this woman, she needs to retire. But I went along and I did something for the kids because I knew it would save time. Rather than getting them to do it and us wasting our time later having to do it for them, I just thought, while she's explaining something, I'll go along and do this thing, and then it'll be prepped and ready to go for when the kids turn up and get going with their bit. But she went back and she had a shit about it because I had done it. And she goes, can you not do that? So I go, but why? It's going to save time later. And she's like, no, I didn't ask you to. It's like, oh, fuck you, guy. It's like, initiative isn't rewarded in the workplace. So there I was trying to, I suppose it must have been a form of external validation because I wanted to get the ball up and rolling. I wanted to help the situation. Knowing that this would waste time later, I prepped. I am a prepper. I don't like piss farting around. I want the job done now. That's my mum speaking. But at the same time, it's, you know it's going to help. Just do it. Why are you fucking around? But because I had used my initiative and she saw it as some kind of me taking over sort of thing, even though that we're both fucking teachers, in fact, I'm more qualified than her to be a teacher. She's just old. The initiative wasn't rewarded. I'm sitting there thinking, fuck off. I don't need this shit. So I just smiled and I undid all the things I'd done, or I replaced the bits that could be replaced, rather than going back, and we just got on with it. I'm sitting there going, sometimes you just need to smile and wave and watch people shit on themselves. Because in the end, we did have to go back and redo this fucking thing. And it wasted a lot of time, and the kids were late going to the next class, and it's just like, if you'd have just let me do what I needed to do, this would have been a hell of a lot easier. But, ego gets involved, and people know better, and all this extra shit, and you sit there and think, I don't know why I bothered in the first place. Fuck it. Let's waste time. Let's waste resources. Because you need to be right. It's insane. The external validation doesn't work. It's temporary. It's contextually... It doesn't matter. And it changes as well, because now she hasn't learned from that. She'll carry on with the same example, because she's got 4 classes in the same age group, and she did the same thing, all 4 classes. I'm sitting there thinking, for the sake of you being right, we could have saved time, resources. We wouldn't have to keep piss farting around. But some people won't learn. They don't want to learn. Sometimes you need to just let them have their way. What it was at Keanu Reeves. I love what his quotes are some days. He said, these days I don't fight. It's something along the lines of, I'm not good quoting verbatim, but he says, there's no point trying to solve. If someone says 2 + 2 is 5, I say, you're absolutely right. I think he's got the clue there. It's like, just agree at this point, because some people are quite thick and they can't see the tree, can't see the forest for the trees. So let it go, man. Don't stress yourself out waiting for these fuckers to catch on. But again, there is a danger to actually seeking external validation. There's a lot of people, like at the moment there's this organisation going around in Australia, which is meant to be a mental health thing. And they're saying, their motto or whatever it is, their slogan is act, commit, belong, or some shit like that. Now, as an introvert that doesn't like people, who hides from people a lot, I don't want to belong. I really don't. I don't like that idea. I've seen what people do. I've seen what people do in masses, and I kind of tend to stay to myself. And I like it that way. I'm sitting there going, I'm not belonging to shit at this point. I will go and do my job and leave. But then you get like people who try to do the workplace friends thing, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, no. I've compartmentalized people, because they do this horrible shit where they fuck up your social life by existing in the workplace, That's why you never date people at work, and you never, you try to keep it separate. You never mix business with pleasure, because at one point, either business or pleasure is going to fuck up. And if you've intertwined them, then both of them are going to fuck up at the same time. So there's no point belonging in that sense for me. And it's also down to the individual. I don't think that we should have to force ourselves into these social situations where we feel uncomfortable for the sake of saying that we belong. There's a lot of social groups I could have belonged to that I didn't want to, because I looked at it and went, well, that sounds stupid. Not doing that. And you walk the other way. I hung out with stoners part of high school. I never actually did drugs, but I liked talking to them and understanding they were relaxed people. Would I ever take up weed or drugs or anything? No, because I know it's stupid. And I don't want to belong to that social group. And if it meant, not that it ever did, if it meant that I would have to take drugs to belong to that social group, then it would completely fuck it up, because you'd be seeking external validation from people who, at this point, I don't even know what they've done with their life. Because I can assure you, if you're doing drugs that early in your life, it probably wasn't a good thing. It probably didn't turn out to be great as an adult. But they had some good insight to a few things. I don't know. I think there are few exceptions to that rule. Maybe Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg does a lot of weed, but he's also incredibly famous and hardworking. So, he might be the exception. I think he's actually invested in medicinal marijuana and stuff like that as well. It's just interesting, but still, it's not kosher enough for me to do the same. So I'm just nah. I'm like, nah. I don't want to get my hands dirty with that kind of stuff. It doesn't feel right to me. Anyway, so the dangers also, and I know in my previous podcast I also talked about show ponies, if you listen to that one, and it is a pretty aggressive podcast, that one, because I walked away from that one going, oh shit, that was a bit rough. And I thought, no, because it needs to be said, doesn't it? If you're looking for external validation through using sexuality or extreme behaviors or things like that, because you want to be the class clown, or because you want to be seen as the stunt guy or the sexy girl or whatever it is, these fucked up archetypes where everybody in the end never actually lives up to what they say they're going to do, there is a danger of destroying yourself as well in the process, because that external validation only ever leads to certain things. It doesn't guarantee that you will get to where you want it to get to. I mean, these people that want to be sex symbols, for example, it's like, yeah, there's a certain problem with sticking your head above the trenches in that way. You could be deemed a sex symbol or an attractive person or something like that, maybe dressed to impress or some shit like that, and you got your tits out or some shit like that. But the problem is the counter argument to that is you might get the attention of the wrong people, very aggressive, sexually exploitative people who will fuck you and do things to you that you don't want them to. So that's a risk you've got to take as well. It's like, you got these, 20-year-old girls who want to be, I want to be attractive to the boys like me. It's like, do you know what kinds of boys are attracted to you right now? Do you know what kind of men are attracted to you right now while you've got your tits out? And you can sit there and you can say, oh, it's my right to walk down the street in fucking G-strings or whatever. I don't know, ratchet shit. And they're not allowed to touch me. It's like, yeah, that's a nice idea. But the reality is not every man is sitting at the same value level, the same moral level as the ones that you think are attracted to you. You know what I mean? It's like, not every guy is not a rapist. For example, it's like, you shouldn't do that. That was the argument I had with my ex-boyfriend. I'm sitting there going, the girls are acting like, you know, sluts. They're acting like, I don't know if they actually are sluts, but they were definitely acting like that. I'm sitting there going, you're giving mixed messages to guys that are reading these the wrong way and then claiming, you know, I'm female, this is the law, you're not allowed to do this, it's ethically wrong, but at the same time, it's like, all it takes is one guy to turn up and say, you know, I fuck the law, I'm gonna do what I want. And then you've given yourself, you know, scarring trauma, you know? It's like, but I said no. It's like, doesn't matter. I said no to my ex-boyfriend, he still did it. You know, I said no to my fucking cousin, he still did it. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's the theory is nice, the story, the idea is nice, that you can say no and they will adhere to that. They'll go, oh, right, she's wrong. Yeah. You know, she said no. I was like, oh, stop right now. But that's the thing. It's like the guys that you're attracting, you can't filter out whether they're the good ones or the bad ones that will adhere to the rules and say, oh, she said no. But they seem to think, you know, it's a nice idea. It's just not realistic. And that might be coming from trauma. That might be coming from intergenerational trauma as a female. It's our safety that we have to make paramount. And whilst you're sitting there, you know, desiring guys to look at you, you can't tell which ones are the right ones to look at you. So I don't know why they fucking do it, to be honest. And it devalues them as well, because it makes it look like they're easy and they're cheap. And if anyone can get them, then you don't want them. And the guys that are good guys don't want them because everyone's had them, you know? And it goes both ways for women as well, because I don't like slutty guys. I really don't. I look at them and I think, this is not attractive to me. If you listen to the man-hoeing podcast, you'll understand why I don't like that. Because it makes them feel risky. You know, I don't feel safe with a guy that acts like a whore, or who's got this weird machismo bravado bullshit going on. So I don't like that. It doesn't feel safe to me. I'm sitting there thinking, like, how many of these other girls you got online or whatever, because you can't keep your dick where it needs to be, because you need external validation from either your guy friends or some chick on fucking Instagram or some shit like that. It doesn't feel safe. They're not guys I would value, because they just don't present as someone worth keeping. You don't feel valued in any kind of arrangement like that. If you've got a guy with a shitload of girls on Facebook, bearing in mind this is like taking it from a heterosexual perspective, maybe, I don't know. I'm bisexual, so it's like it could go either way. If it's guy friends, girlfriends, it's like, it's a bit trickier because you're like, okay, so which one of these fuckers are you banging? Potentially on the side. And I have trust issues. I know that because, you know, I've had 3 partners in a row now who cheated on me, or, you know, demanded an open relationship, or, you know, you find evidence of the cheating, but they won't admit it, but you found the evidence. You know, it's like, all this shit. I know I've got trust issues because of that. So I don't seek out guys that are hoary. It's like, I don't want a hoary guy. I don't think you're sexy for flashing your chests or wearing one of those hoochie daddy shorts and shit like that. I don't think it's attractive. I think it's at risk. I think you are creating problems because you have low self-esteem and you feel inclined to flash your whatever. And it's creating problems, to be honest. And that could be my insecurities, to be honest. I don't know. I've never been particularly flashy, but that's, again, my mum, in a weird, inadvertent way, trying to keep us safe because she knew what kind of world we were going into. She was aggressively telling us we were surrounded by rapists and pedophiles and we should be more careful with the way we show ourselves, and, you know, you always close your curtains when you're getting changed, and you know, wherever you go out you should be chaperoned. But at the same time, given the area I was raised in, I didn't get pregnant at 16. So you can imagine, I was safer to an extent, but at the same time, it's like, it did give me a very, what's that, like, cushion, not cushion, but like, it was a very sheltered existence. Like, I have real trouble dealing with the darkness of sexuality. I really do. I know that much. I didn't peak sexually till I was in my early 30s because I've gone from a very, I've just never had that inclination to sleep around. I've always had a very clean view of sex. It's like a very committed, very monogamous, romantic, soft view of sex. I mean, you can still get down and dirty, but at the same time, it's going to be consensual, adult, monogamous, right? Ideally in a long-term relationship. I didn't lose my virginity till I was like engaged, and I'd been with him 10 years. So, it's a very clean view of. And then you get those people who are like 19, 20 are just happy to fuck around. And I'm sitting going, how? How can you fuck around and not get emotionally involved? It's just how? It's like, what is going on in your brain that you can just cut off all feeling and fuck someone and leave and not have a problem with that? It's like, it feels like you're deadheaded. There's no emotion there. There's no spark or anything of the divine, sort of thing. It's like you're just an object. It's like how low is your self-esteem that you've devalued yourself to being able to just fuck around and leave and not have any kind of sense of value or want that interpersonal connection. You just see people and yourself as objects. It just feels weird to me. Some people do that where they can just sleep around and they get external validation that way. It's like, my value is how many people I can accumulate. I'm sitting there going, I don't think so, dude. I think you're just accumulating VD at this point. No, but I've been really clean. It's like, yeah, but it's not just sexual VD you fuck with. It's emotional, psychological VD, Your brain is diseased. Your heart's diseased. Your feelings are gone. You've got no emotional connection. You can't connect with people anymore because you just see them as things to fucking leave. And that's why people become so disposable to these people, because they're looking for that external validation. But real connection is something you have to invest in. It takes time, takes effort, takes commitment, loyalty, all these extra things that they just don't want to do. Because sex is fun and you can just leave, and that way I don't have to put any extra effort into the relationship or anything like that. That's how you end up in situationships. Usually when one person actually falls for the other person. But it's unrequited, but they'll stick around because the sex is there or the money's there. It's horrible. It's these horrible, unromantic, disconnected people who are not only disconnected from the people around them, but from themselves, and they have no sense of emotional worth or value. They can't commit to people because they don't see anything like love as a valuable commodity or loyalty. They're only loyal so long as they can get something out of someone. It's horrible. It's this tragic thing. I think that one of the worst things you can be is a diehard romantic surrounded by people who are polyamorous or cheat, or see no problem with cheating. I think it sounds a bit, victimizing or self-victimizing at this point. It's like, I'm a diehard romantic, and the last 3 relationships I've had with whores, inadvertently. It's not like I went out looking for the fuckers, but they found me, It's every 3 guys that have cheated. It's like, what do you do with that? It's like, do you keep going? Do you just say, oh, fuck it, I'm not looking for anyone anymore. I've had enough. I'm done. This is horrible. It's a real tragedy, I think. Because they don't know how much I'm involved in this emotionally, psychologically, because they just see it as a hit it and quit it. It's like, it's okay, it doesn't matter, I can just hurt her feelings and fucking leave. It's like, oh, it's just hurting her feelings. No, it's actually me. Like, for my ex-husband, for example, I was living and breathing for him. I was all in. I'd die for that fucker, He didn't understand that when he left, when he checked out emotionally, psychologically. If he was ever there, emotionally or psychologically. I was all in. I was down to the bone marrow, dude. I was in there. I was the quintessential ride or die for that fucker. I had to leave, so because bitch called into question my morals. Take that shit from a beta. That's the thing, though. I find that fucking hilarious. Like, the whole time he did the Andrew Tate, he's like, I'm an alpha. And you're acting like a beta. You're such a little bitch, dude. I need as much puss as I can because I have no self-worth. If I collect the puss, then I have value. So you don't have value, you just got a bunch of VD, you fucking idiot. And no one who actually loves you anymore because you just shat on them. I don't know what that was. It was a very strange thing. I think he assumed that I would stay in spite of it. That's the problem with trauma bonding. as well, I find. just the one problem. The people, even for the people who are doing it, they assume a lot. They assume that they've got some kind of power over you, and they really don't. They don't, because it's by choice that we enable these fuckers to do that to us. There is always a point in a trauma-bonded relationship where someone turns around and says, fuck this, I'm out. And for me, it was giving ultimatums about having open marriages. I'm like, if you knew me for the last 16 years, you know I would never have gone for this. So in knowing me this long, surely you would know my reaction will cause this to fail. So that's how I knew he already had checked out. So it got to the point where he was more than willing to want to fuck other people or be openly fucking other people. And so going, no, not in a million lifetimes would I ever be okay with this. Not in a million. And he set himself up for a fall there because in his arrogance and ego, he thought I would go for it. I don't know why. I will put up with you leaving little piles of toenails around the house and just generally being a slob. I had put up with all the extra shit, like wiping his ass near enough, you know, doing his taxes, bills, house cleaning, and all that shit. I put up with that for 16 years, and this one thing, I'm like, dude, no, because you called my morals into question. I don't mind playing wife to an asshole with some bad habits, but this, no. Oh my god, the arrogance. It was hilarious. I'm sitting there going, how the fuck did you think you'd let this slide? It's that external validation. I'm a people pleaser. I am to an extent still a people pleaser. I want people to be happy when I'm with them. I will go out of my way to make them feel comfortable because I know what it is to not be comfortable. I know what it is to be in pain. I don't want them to have to feel it. If you love someone, absolutely you should be going out of your way to make them feel warm, safe, loved, everything. That is the whole purpose of love. That is the whole purpose of relationships. To build with each other, to structure each other. You know, it's not a point of controlling each other. It's not a point of exploiting. It's a case of if you love someone, you want the best for them. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna drop my morals. It's like, I know for sure in me that that's wrong, that shit. It doesn't feel right. Nothing about that feels acceptable. And so knowing yourself is invaluable. It's like, because I knew it would have been torture to stay. It would have been absolute torture. And you know what? He's fucking had enough. He's had enough chances. So I left. It's like, nah, you called it before I actually called it, so yeah. Then you get like the whole parent thing as well. Like I've had a weird dynamic with my parents growing up. They've got this constant push for loyalty to the family. But they've not given us anything worth being loyal to. Now, as far as I can see, it seems to be a DNA genetic-based thing. You have to be loyal to our bloodline. Although, I've seen our bloodline. I'm not feeling very optimistic about it. There are a lot of questionable people in my bloodline who did some very questionable shit. Mainly out of, poverty or, just questionable morals. Like, particularly on my dad's side of the family, there's a lot of... Because we came from, like, Cockneys and shit. My dad's side of the family is questionable. My mum's side's entirely honourable. But my dad's side's constantly on the fiddle. So I can't be loyal to these people. And it's, you ever watch like Peaky Blinders kind of shit? Imagine that as Cockneys. You gotta be loyal to the family. It's like, I ain't fucking loyal to this shit. I'm gonna get arrested for this shit. But there was that big push. That's the whole theme I had growing up. So you never speak out against them. You never talk about the family in public. You never say a bad word against your parents. That kind of shit. Even though they're sitting there, both berserkers. My mum physically abusive. My dad psychological, emotionally abusive. Why am I being loyal to these people? Why am I looking for their validation? And they trauma bonded us into compliance. Breadcrumbing affection. Constantly telling you, I paid for your shit, so, It's like, you didn't pay for our shit. First of all, we were on Centrelink for a fucking long time. You didn't pay for our shit. The government did. So I can't be loyal to you. If you're pushing financial, loyalty because you pay for our shit, no. It's like, and I would never be under thumb by someone who's, paying for anything that I do. It's like, no. I can get it myself. This is why I'm so hyper independent financially. It's like, I will never be under thumb because someone else is paying my bills. It's like, no. The other thing is like our bloodlines. Like, yeah, it's our family. It's like, what family? Because you aren't acting like a dad. It's like you are a DNA provider. You're physically present. You haven't left for cigarettes. God damn it! But you're still here. But at the same time, my dad was like this huge financial burden himself. His kids were not being fed properly, were not being looked after properly, but he still had his smokes. And I'm sitting there going, fuck you. It's like, and it was easier to just give him the cigarettes than to get him to quit smoking, because he was, I swear to God, he's borderline personality disorder, some shit going on, because there's some mental issues there. It was easier to just give him what he wanted than take on the berserker response of him not getting what he wanted. So we lived a lot of our childhood in fear. I was afraid of my parents, both my parents, up until about 12. Deep-seated fear where I would just go outside and I'd hide under the bushes, literally hide under the bushes to escape them when they got into their loud arguments about dumb shit. I was outside. I never wanted to be around them, which is why I don't have any kind of real connection with them now, because I still, you know, part of me is still living in that fucking zone where I just don't want them touching me. I don't want them around me. And I'm nearly 40 now, so it's weird. Especially when you get like texts from my mum saying, love you. I'm going, what the fuck? No, you don't. So it's an alien concept. I don't know if she's trying to make up for it now. I don't know, man, but it's fucking weird. I don't like it. It makes you feel ick. You know, you're like, ick. Because I still remember what it was. And I still got like trauma and shit from that. I still have nightmares. I have night terrors about shit like that. My dad especially. What he used to do to us. So I have no loyalty to these fuckers, because they didn't give us a chance to be loyal. They gave us nothing worth wanting to hold on to. And again, I talked about before, like, I don't know how I'm going to respond if one of them dies. Because I just don't know. I didn't feel anything when Bob died. Bob was an asshole. He was my granddad, my dad's dad. He was essentially a dirty old man that used money to exploit people. To sum up, I learned a lot of my money skills from him, but, you know, generally, moral grounds, I would not want to be like him. No. I don't like the way he operated as a human being. But when he died, to be honest, I felt there was a great weight lifted off us, to be honest, in a horrible way, because my dad at least would be less stressed, because dad was always getting manipulated by him, fucked over by him, and he took it out on us. So he was like, at least dad's not going to be an asshole for a bit now. And he did. He went into some kind of like dormant kind of mode. He spends most of his days just sleeping and reading these days. So I don't know, you know, people say like, oh, it's a bad thing when someone dies because we'll miss them. It's like, I don't miss Bob. I don't. It's horrible, isn't it? You're like, what a bastard. That's your granddad. It's like, yeah, but you didn't meet him. You didn't know what he was. And that's the legacy he chose to leave. He was alienated from his family because he was a bastard. Not in an actual birth kind of sense. He was born in wedlock, but he was just an arsehole. And he spent whatever money he had rather than as either manipulating his kids or funding whores. Just tarts, you know, like he'd take them out and he'd do all these things for him, trying to impress them rather than support his actual family when they needed them. Any money that my parents lent from him was very much held over their head. Don't forget, I've given you this, I'm this, and you have to do this for me because I've given you this. And they pull that shit with us. That's why I never borrow money off them, because I never want to be under their thumb. My younger sister and brother do. My older brother are under thumb with that shit because they don't seem to have a problem with lending money off people. I'm going, do you not remember Bob? Do you not remember how he raised my dad? It's like, why would you ever go to these fuckers for money? It doesn't make sense. No. And that's part of, you know, because they'll offer to help, but then again, it's the same practices of, well, we've done this for you, now you owe us. It's like, I will never fucking owe you shit. Don't ever come near me, you know? It's like, I don't do that. I don't get in people's pockets. I don't like that. There's a sense of control there that I really don't like. I don't like borrowing money off people. I don't like I don't mind lending it because I'm pretty soft when it comes to lending, but at the same time, I don't borrow. I'm fiercely independent when it comes to that shit. But again, it's that validation as well. Like, the only reason someone like Bob would lend you money is to get that feeling like they're, you know, worth something, like they've done something good for you, so you should do something for them. It was very transactional growing up. All my relationships with my parents and my grandparents, not all my grandparents. Fred was lovely. I don't remember much about my Irish grandma, but Nanny I never really kept any kind of close, because Nanny was my dad's mum, but she stayed in England. She was in Norfolk for a large chunk of my childhood. Never really saw her or anything. But, you know, it's that transactional shit. It's like, I don't like it. And all it's done is show me that if you love someone, that you shouldn't make the relationship transactional. You should be doing it just because you love them. There's a lot of anti-role models to work with there. That's the problem. You can always choose to just go the other way. Some people are like, well, this is what was happening at the time. This was normal for us. We have to do it this way. This is the way we've always done it. And it's like, if you've looked at something and it feels wrong, you don't have to copy that. That's your choice as an adult to not do it. I could have made all my relationships transactional. I chose not to. I still prefer to throw myself in emotionally in relationships and give my all, because that's the way I am. I've done the transactional shit with my parents and with my grandparent, and not with my siblings so much, because we sort of banded together against my parents as, you know, like allies. It's weird. It was a war zone for a very long time. I have better alliances with my siblings than I do with my parents. Yeah, it's weird. Like, my brother I'd drop tools for. My sisters I would question. but the girls were raised different than the boys in our household, so my brother came out soft. My sisters came out hard. I don't know how they did that. But then again, you know, we weren't raised to be soft girls. We were raised to be survival girls, you know, sort of thing. Yeah, we're gonna be fine. The girls are gonna be fine. Joey's a bit soft, but the girls are kicking ass. Yeah, we'll survive whatever. I don't know. Given our mum, you know, our first point of contact on maternal shit. If you can survive our mum, you can survive anything. She was a bad bitch growing up. She was a bad bitch. She was a Valkyrie, man. She fully lived up to her heritage as well. The women were Spartan. My brother was a tearaway, semi-tearaway. He was a very innocent tearaway, never went nuts. But he just wasn't compliant. So, you know, he got the end of the stick most of the times, which kind of was good for us. Bad, horrible end of the stick. But he's fiercely protective of us, and so we're protective of him because he's Joey. He's the soft one. He's like Joey from Friends. He's like that. Lots of sisters that will fuck you up if you piss off our brother. You know, we look after our Joey. There's three of us and we'll fuck you up. Hence the reason my older sister kept getting chucked out of bars. She was a badass in her time, man. She was a bitch, though. Oh, but she's all mum and kids now, and anyway, so yeah, so she grew up. But yeah, you don't want that external validation. It makes no difference. And transactional relationships don't fucking matter. Crowds always change as well. So I left home. I refused to people please my parents anymore because I started putting up boundaries, because I knew as soon as I started trying to make them happy that it would fail. Because they're never happy. They'll always find some other thing to tack you onto. It's like, I used to go down to their farm and I'd do all their farming for them because they're old as fuck and they bought a farm in their mid-60s. I don't know why. But I would go down there and I worked the farm for them because I was only like, 30, maybe mid-20s to 30, and I'm sitting there going, I still got some energy. And I did it because I thought this was the right thing to do, but every time I did something for them, they would tack something else on. It was like they were never happy with what I did. There was never any kind of thank you for helping us kind of thing. It was just expected. Like, my dad's idea for this fucking farm was we're going to buy a hobby farm, we're going to do it up, we're going to put cabins on it so you kids come down of a weekend and work for us. That was his idea. He always has these big fucking ideas. It's like, never mind that you've got lives of your own, you've got jobs of your own, you've got shit you've got to do. You're going to come down of a weekend and work for us because loyalty to the family. It's like, fuck, loyalty to, what the fuck? No, this is your idea. You've romanticized it in your head. We're looking at this like, this is just fucking slave labor. I'm not doing this. It's like, I've got a job. I work fucking full time, man. I'm not coming down to a farm to wipe your ass because you can't make fucking adult decisions in your mid-60s. Sure, we'll get a farm in our mid-60s. It'll be great. It'll work out really well. We've got the energy. We've got the resources to work a farm. Yeah, fuck no. He has dumb ideas of grandeur, you know? You don't think this is impractical. And the first thing I'm saying to Mama these days is like, as soon as he dies, get rid of that fucking farm. I don't give a fuck what your idea was. It didn't work. Cut your losses. But again, I went down on the farm and I worked the farm. I planted the orchards, gave them sheep and chickens, all this extra shit, and they fucked it up. And then in the end, I said, I'm not coming down to that farm anymore, and they don't understand why. But they keep trying to guilt trip me into going. It was like, oh, but we need this done. It's like, well, ask one of the others. There's 3 other kids. Go and ask them. We're not kids anymore. We're adults with lives. We don't want your fucking farm. You would be better to take that money, sell the fucking farm, invest it in something like a long-term deposit, some shit, I don't know, something basic, than keep pouring shit into this rundown fucking farm. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's not even gonna fucking sell when we, you know, because it's run down. It's run down because they took on a project that was too big because they spoke out of ego rather than using their rational mind. And they said, this is a good time to buy a farm. That's already run down when they bought it. And then we're going to do it up. It's like, no, you're going to expect us to do it up, and it's not going to happen. And the only reason that doesn't happen is because they didn't give us a good emotional foundation when we were kids. There's no allegiance there. Everything's fucking questionable at this point because they treated us like shit. It's like, if you'd have built a good emotional foundation for your kids and there was this willingness to jump in and say, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll come and help because you guys are awesome people and I love my parents and I want to get involved and I want to support them and look after them and all this shit. It didn't happen. It didn't happen because they were abusive, because they were berserkers. There's no emotional connection because they alienated us from a young age to put us into service. My domestication started at 5. It's like there was no feeling there. There was no maternal instinct. We were in survival mode for the majority of our childhood, well into our 20s, well into mid-20s. Poverty cycle was just fucking off the chart, man. We just couldn't break that shit. And it was because of my irresponsible dad and my overbearing mum. It's incredibly bad circumstances, complete clusterfuck for building any kind of emotional connection or loyalty or fealty to these fuckers. And then they wonder why they get to the mid-60s and no one wants to be around them. Because they're assholes. They were assholes growing up. You set the platform. You set the tone for the whole relationship and circumstances where you're hoping to trauma bond us into compliance, but realistically no one wants to be around them because they're assholes and they give us jobs. It's like, we can't just hang out with our parents anymore. There's always something that pops up. Oh, I just want you to do this. I want you to do that for me. Can you go and find this for me? It's like, I don't want to. I want to just hang out with you. I want to build some kind of connection while you're still alive. But at the same time, they just don't. It's always a job. Or it's always, can you look for this? Can you do this for me? It's like, no, I don't want to, you know? It's just like, because as soon as you go back into that house, it's like you're fucking 10 again and you're doing jobs for them because if you don't, you'll get hit. It's like, it's a weird dynamic. Is that I don't want their approval. I don't want anything to do with that. And I find it's weird that some people go through life and they're still friends with their parents. I don't know if it's just me having a fucked up, you know, first 40 years of my life. I would like to believe that maybe it would get better, but I don't think it will because they don't seem to acknowledge the fucked up shit they've done. Even though it's like, we remember, all 4 of us get together and we have these fucked up discussions about shit that happened to us when we were kids or teenagers or, you know, even in our 20s. And they don't seem to want to acknowledge that this shit happened. It's like, no, this isn't something you can just forget. when, you know, the residual shit is that your kids have all got eating disorders and mental issues. And, you know, we're not emotionally stable, and we're incredibly resilient, but at the same time, it's not good. Hyper independent shit. You know, it's weird. It's weird. I don't look for approval anymore. I don't look for their approval particularly. You know, it's funny though, because I watch these old movies where like the guy goes up to the girl's father and asks for the hand in marriage and shit like that. I would laugh my ass off if a guy did that to my dad. It's like, don't go to him. Go to me. Why would you go to him? This is insane. It's like, I've got to go to your father to ask for your hand in marriage. Like, I would think less of you for doing that. Don't do that. Fuck that. He has no street cred, dude. Don't go there. Just no. It's like, your father, he's so valuable. Fuck. No, he isn't. No. No. Actually, I made me. He might have, you know, donated some genes, but at the same time, I generally made me, if not my mum made me, into this very, you know, hyper independent woman. Having said that, don't go to my mum either, because she'll probably laugh at you too. Yeah, it's a really weird existence. But anyway. Alright, I'm going to have to sum it up because I'm already running late. So the moral of the story is, don't look for external validation. You put yourself in someone else's pocket by doing that. You're going to have to find internal validation. No one's going to give you what you really want, which is inevitably love and acceptance. No one's going to actually give it. There's always a condition. There's always someone turning around saying, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. I would love to believe in unconditional love. Of course, yes, it does exist, because we still have things like kids. Some people manage to make that connection with their kids. My parents didn't, but they opted out, essentially. They could have, but they didn't want to. And that's on them. That's an adult decision. It's not something that goes onto the kid. There's, you know, they've got the whole adage, the sins of the father don't translate to the kid. They, as adults, chose to make a situation that wasn't exactly good for them in the long term. They could have done better, I will say that. On the upside, I'm never worried about being a disappointment to my parents, because ultimately they were a disappointment first. Probably shouldn't look at it that way. It's not very nice, is it? No, it's not probably nice. You weren't there. This is, you know, comments like that come from people who have had stable family lives. That's the thing. It's like, if you'd come from an unstable family life and you heard a comment like that, you go, yeah, I agree. People who set the standards for, that's not very nice, generally have no concept of what it is to be in those environments. So I find that interesting. These people have never had, you know, crosswords sent to them. So, I don't know. Everything's down to the individual. Okay, so I want you to find internal validation instead of looking for external validation, because things change. Obviously, people change, circumstances change. You're never going to get absolute acceptance, because if you've listened to the Show Buddies podcast, you'll know what I mean by, you know, you can try, but inevitably shit changes. One day you're not going to be the flavour of the month, and then it's going to be troubling for you if that's all you've set yourself up to be. So anyway, I hope you guys have a fantastic Monday. I'm going to try and do another podcast on the way back. I've got to work into my classroom now. I've got a 1-2 hopefully, if they've kept their side of the bargain up. Otherwise I will be somewhere else. Have a fantastic Monday and keep it together.